Week 7 of college football. Boy, does that sound crazy to say out loud. We've got a bunch of top 25 matchups, barking dogs, best bets. The deli's still cooking, and that train is still rolling down the tracks. Let's get into this week's episode of Bet on It. All right, Kelly Stewart here, joined by Gianni the Greek and Marco D'Angelo. This is the college football edition of Bet on It. So we're going to get into some of these top 25 games. And I'm going to go first, 12 p.m. Eastern. Number 1, Ohio State is a 2-touchdown favorite at number 17, Illinois. 49.5 here is the total. And actually, the Buckeyes have that hook hanging on. And that has me looking towards the Illini. Now, one could argue that the Buckeyes own the series, but these two have not played each other since November of 2017. And since losing to Michigan in that close regular season loss last year, Ohio State has gone 9-0 straight up, 8-0-1 against the spread. But hey, Brett Bielema and the Illini are not far behind. Since their bye week in mid-November of last year, Illini 9-1 straight up and against the spread. And you guys remember that lone loss at Indiana earlier this season. I'm sure the Illinois team would like to forget that one as well. But I like this Illinois team here at home, catching points, double digits for Bielema as a home dog. I think you guys know what to do. I might not get to the window with this team, but Illinois and some contest plays will be it for me. 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 7, Indiana, down to 7.5. This one opened at 10 there on Sunday night at Circa. At number 3, Oregon, total 55.5. VR, what do you make of this line move before you get into the total here?
I wasn't surprised. Listen, Oregon's top 3 in the country as far as power ratings go. But Indiana's right there as well. And I think they got them ranked correctly. I've been able to take advantage of the incorrect rankings based mostly on records than anything else. And I talk about it all the time, how the cream does eventually rise to the top. But this is just a perfect example of the rankings being on point with the power ratings. And based on that, I wasn't surprised to see some money come in on the dog. But where it sits now, I don't think there's all that much value on the side. So I'm going to look to the total. And I think we're going to get extra couple points by going under here based on the high profile offenses. And obviously both teams coming in having put up decent amount of points week in and week out. But if you look at the defensive side of the ball, both teams have allowed more than 14 points only one time. That was it. So you're looking at two high level defenses, and usually that's the perfect storm to go over because the market overreacts to just how good the defenses are. So the line's shaded towards that bias. And I talk about it all the time. Defenses create points as well, turnovers, special teams. But because we're talking about the high profile offense of Oregon and the narrative about them being a team that puts up a lot of points, and Indiana doing the same thing more or less week in and week out, we got a higher line than it should be, sitting at about 55.5. And it's a telling sign that this line hasn't gone up, even though you're starting to see the public lining up on that over. So definitely some resistance from sharp bettors. I agree with that. So we're going to go under 55 for the TV game this week.
Speaking of those defenses, wow, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 6, Oklahoma is headed to the Cotton Bowl to take on Texas. Now, this line's flipped back and forth between who was the favorite. The current one here on the odds logic screen, Oklahoma -1.5, total 42.5. Marco, that's what I'm looking at in this one. I'm like, everybody wants to talk about these two defenses. We've seen this Red River rivalry, shootout, whatever you want to call it these days, be an absolute score fest before. I thought 42.5 was really low, but you're actually looking at a side here.
Yeah, I am. And as you said, the line's gone back and forth. And when I did the game last night, I was looking at it. Actually, Texas was the favorite last night. This is what tells the story for me. You look at this game and you've got Oklahoma, who is ranked 6th in the nation, and you got Texas, who, if you remember, came into the season as the #1 team in the country in the preseason rankings. And what happened? Well, they lose that opening game against Ohio State, and then last week against all teams, winless Florida, they get beat last week, and all of a sudden they're out of the top 25. We're getting value with this Texas team, in my opinion, and the market corrected itself. When you've got, even if it's a pick 'em +1, -1, you got a ranked team versus an unranked team. That sends up all the red flags in the world that Oklahoma might just be overrated in this one. And let's be honest, they are undefeated, but they really only had 2 signature wins. And if you look at the 2 signature wins, the first one came against Michigan at home, and that was the second game of the season for them. And it was the first game for Michigan quarterback on the road. You know, they got that highly touted freshman at Michigan, but going into Oklahoma for your first road game, that's a tall order for anyone. And, you know, they got the win there. Their other win, well, they had a touchdown victory over Auburn. And, you know, the jury is still out. Is Auburn a decent team? Not a decent team. It was a lackluster performance. I think Texas, they're playing with house money now. Granted, normally, and VR mentioned it last week, and shout out to him when he talked about the Penn State UCLA game and talking about Dream Crusher games. A team that had expectations to win a national championship, when you lose for the second time, your season's over as far as the national championship goes. But because they are playing their heated rival, I'm not going to play that card yet for the Dream Crusher. They want to wreck somebody else's dream. And if you can knock Oklahoma from the ranks of the unbeaten, they're going to show up for this game. I'm going to go ahead. I am going to take Texas. You talk about defense. There's never been a problem with the Texas defense at all. The problem has been with Arch Manning. But if he has a clean game and just improves at all, I think they win this football game. I'm going to go with them, Texas. And the other part of being out of it, that gives them the opportunity, Kelly, to take chances in the game. What do they have to lose? You can gamble more on 4th downs, you know, when you're sitting there with 2 losses. It's not like you're playing not to lose instead of playing to win. I'll go ahead and take Texas. Can't really call it an upset, but it will be an unranked team knocking off a ranked team.
Yeah, upset, at least in the eyes of the talking heads, since they don't actually follow the point spreads. I want to give you guys a big shout out for following us here on Bet On It. Make sure you guys give us that thumbs up button, hit the like, and of course, subscribe. And if you're looking to become a WagerTalk insider, WT.buzz/insiders gets you tons of extra content, early content, and of course, a $5 coupon to use each month over at WagerTalk.com. VR, we're going to get up to you next. The Steam Room has been rocking and rolling on Sundays in the NFL edition, but you guys get your own preview of what that looks like right here on Bet On It each week. Where have we seen the money going early on Wednesday afternoon, VR?
Yeah, let's talk about some of these marquee games in college football. Start off with Florida getting points once again. Steam Florida. It seems like this entire season they've been taking the Florida side. They took the 8.5 and they took the 8 on Florida. Also, double digits, took South Carolina plus the 10 over the LSU side. We also saw Oklahoma money at that opener of 3, got bet down really quickly. Oklahoma money line, Oklahoma plus 2.5, Oklahoma plus 2. Seeing a lot of love on Oklahoma. 197 Indiana. I already touched on them against Oregon. A lot of that value has been extracted. They took the 8 off the board as well there. Florida State laid the chalk with Florida State against Pitt, laid the 9, laid the 9.5, laid the 10 there. Then Mizzou against Alabama, taking the home dog there at +4, +3.5. That's why you're looking at a field goal game now. Then Arizona State plus the 6 at Utah. And finally, BYU -1 against Arizona. Those are some of the more high-profile games. Haven't seen a move on that Georgia-Auburn yet. Haven't seen sharp money, but still a little early in the week. And again, a lot of those less profile games, you're seeing movement, but pay attention on Thursdays. I talked about it before. That's when you'll see the totals move after 9 a.m. Pacific time. Pay attention to odds logic. Some of the biggest total moves come on Thursdays.
If you guys are looking for a free week trial of Odds Logic, oddslogic.com/ace. Get you 1 free week so you guys can check that out. And if not, we still have the WagerTalk free odds page, wt.buzz/odds. Let's get into those barking dogs, guys, because it has been by far our best segment, not only here on the college football show, but also in the NFL show. Marco and I, well, let's put it this way. Marco's got a double-digit barking dog because he's going to try to keep up with what VR somehow pulled out last week, and it wasn't even close. Great call by VR. We didn't even have to sweat that one. But Marco, I love this. This is a double-digit dog that was also on my radar. I don't know if I'm going to get to the window with the money line, but maybe I could use a little convincing.
Well, you got to put a little sprinkle, Kelly. Come on. You got to put a little seasoning in the stew there for Saturday. And this is one of those ones where this is the poster child for the saying that I do all the time. No team is as good as their best game, nor are they as bad as their worst game. Enter Clemson and Boston College. Clemson's coming off their best game of the year. They won 38-10 over North Carolina. Well, let's point out the two obvious things. First of all, North Carolina stinks, okay? That's the first part. Second part, Clemson had 2 weeks to prepare for that game, and Clemson was coming off the last time they played. They were an 18-point favorite at home to Syracuse and lost outright. So you had a very focused Clemson team playing a very bad North Carolina team, and that's what you got, a 38-10 blowout. On the flip side of that, you had Boston College that absolutely got boat raced at Pittsburgh last week, 48-7. It was a pillar to post game from Pitt. Pitt even changed quarterbacks for that game. Guy made his first start and just drilled Boston College. Now you look at that one, a couple things from that. One, Boston College was -3 in turnovers. That helped the game spin out of control quickly. And it was a horrible scheduling spot for Boston College. They have been playing a bunch of road games early in the season, and it was their third road game out of their past 4. And in those 3 road games that they had in the last 4, one of them was a cross-country trip to Stanford. We've talked about this silliness with the ACC schedule with California and Stanford, playing in the ACC just doesn't make sense with travel, and it creates problems for teams going west or those teams coming east. This is also a spot where you think they were looking ahead to Clemson a little bit. Which do you get more excited about, going to Pitt or playing Clemson? I'm going to go ahead and take Boston College in this one. Prior to that Pitt debacle, their 3 losses were by 2, 10, and 4 points. They were very competitive in all of their games. I am not sold on Clemson just yet. And yes, I realize Boston College sitting at 1-4. What do they got to play for? Well, when your season's over early, yeah, you risk mailing it in the rest of the season, except you're going to circle a couple games on your schedule. And I looked at the remaining schedule for Boston College, and if their so-called, quote, bowl games for them will be this Clemson game and later in the year when Notre Dame comes to town. Other than that, I probably will not be involved in a Boston College game unless I'm going against them. But this week, we're going to take them plus the points. I think this is going to be much closer than people think. And we'll go ahead and put just a little sprinkle on the money line as well. I got to try to keep up with VR, but again, congrats to him on that call with UCLA last week.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, now I got to try to keep up with both of you because VR also has a double-digit dog, and I thought my 9-point underdog was going to be sufficient. It is apparently not. Now we have a competition going on here. VR, this one's, as a girl who follows the Big 12 very closely, we'll just call it interesting. Tell me why you like Oklahoma State here in this spot.
Yeah, and I gave this out to subscribers as a premium play immediately. Number one, I think Houston's a overvalued team. a little bit overrated, sitting at 4-1. They've had a very easy strength of schedule. In fact, it's the close to the 80th toughest schedule so far in college football. So not surprised they're sitting at 4-1. But if you look, even though they've done well against the spread, also they're profitable at 3-2. They haven't been winning with big margin, meaning it's not like they're putting up 40 plus points in game. In fact, the most they put up was 36 points. To cover 14.5, you got to be able to put up a lot of points. And I think as bad as Oklahoma State has looked offensively and defensively, they've had a much tougher strength of schedule to date. And I think, if anything, they're going to improve off of that. They're going to start to progress towards the mean. They're not that bad of a football team as they've shown to date. With that said, Houston's strength is their defense. That's where they're, most efficient. At least it's appeared that way so far this early in the season. They're 9th nationally in yardage per game. But dig a little deeper into the metrics, and they're probably in like the top 40 defensively overall, their efficiency. So they're not a top 10 defense like it appears. That's just, against yardage allowed, which stat doesn't mean all that much. So I think they're getting a little too much credit for their defense. And I think a lot of that has to do with that strength of schedule. Also, their stud quarterback had that concussion protocol last week. So we know he's not 100%. They're going to want to be careful with him for sure. In Oklahoma State, tough environment, a strong home field advantage, almost 3 points, about 2.8 something. That's pretty high for college football. Getting 2 touchdowns plus, I think, is a gift. It's worth a little sprinkle on the money line as well. Again, are we going to hit back-to-back big money lines? We'll find out Saturday. But I do think they could keep this within the number. I think Houston's one of those phony 4-1 teams, and I think Oklahoma State's not as bad as they've looked. Again, strength of schedule had a lot to do with it. Give me the 2 touchdowns with Oklahoma State and sprinkle that money line, because it's a generous number.
I know a lot of people may say that Oklahoma State doesn't have some big home field advantage because they fired Gundy and their team's not any good. You guys haven't been paying attention. They have still been packing that house. It is absolutely wild to see, as somebody who is kind of a fair weather fan themselves this season. That being said, I'm taking a 9-point underdog, the littlest dog here on the board in South Carolina. So I was happy to hear VR say during the season segment that he saw sharp money come from 10 to 9 there. Look, LSU, they won the last 8 meetings, including that crazy road win, 36-33 last year in Columbia. If you guys remember, South Carolina jumped out early, 17-0 over the Tigers, but boom, Lenora Sellers gets knocked out of the game with the injury, and the Gamecocks get reffed to death, 13 penalties for 123 yards. I think it's probably fair to say the Gamecocks have this one circled. Yes, both teams are coming off a bye, but I think this LSU team is not as good as everybody had thought over the summertime. 10-3 against the spread in their last 13 SEC matches. I like the Gamecocks, and I'm going to go ahead and apologize to South Carolina because I can't wait to see how you guys lose this game in horrible fashion. Yes, that's what exactly happened last week to all of our underdogs. It is the kiss of death. If I put them in the barking dog segment, they're going to cover but not win. So apologies in advance. Let's get right into the deli. The deli has been rocking and rolling there, Marco. 16-9 on the season. You also do an additional deli segment each week here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Can you please let everybody know where they can find that and who the sandwich name of the week is?
Yum.
Yeah, Kelly, that 16-9 record that you referenced, that's on the bonus edition of Marco's Deli. We've had 5 episodes so far this season, 5 games each week. We've had 4 winning weeks out of 5. Last week was our first losing week. We went 2-3 on the show last week, and we are 16-9 with these plays for the season. And tune in every Thursday. We release it. It's out late on Thursday, and then it is part of the Mega podcast as well, the Mega show here with the Bet On It show. So, if you like what we do here and you want seconds, we give you one deli special here every week on Bet On It. You want 5 more, and I break the games down, tell you the insights of how I'm looking at the games and what the situation is that I'm looking at. It's both educational and profitable. Tune in every week to Marco's Deli. For this week's sandwich game of the week, well, this was a game that last week made the bonus show. We took Wisconsin last week as one of those deli specials. Now, it wasn't pretty, but it got there. They were plus 17 against Michigan, and they lost by 14. And the reason we were on Wisconsin in that game is because Michigan was in a big sandwich spot last week. Well, this week, it's Wisconsin who's in that sandwich spot, and it's a big one. If you look at Wisconsin, they're coming off playing Michigan last week. And guess what? Take a look at next week, who they play. Yeah, that's right. They've got the number 1 team in the country coming to their house. Ohio State will be coming to town next week. Iowa has had 2 weeks to prepare for them. Now, that gives them a huge edge in this matchup. Offensively, these two teams are basically even. They put up about the same type of numbers. But where the difference is in between these two teams is the defense. Iowa has the upper hand. They're allowing just 4.5 yards per play defensively. Given the superior defense, given the extra prep time, given the bad scheduling spot that we have Wisconsin in, there's only one way for me to go in this game, and I'm going to go ahead and lay it with Iowa. Lay the 3.5 in this one. I've got Iowa winning 23-13. Yeah, it'll be one of those classic Iowa games. There's not going to be a lot of points scored in it, but I like the Iowa Hawkeyes to prevail on Saturday against Wisconsin as the sandwich game of the week.
All right, it is time for best bets. VR, you're going to be up first here.
Yeah.
This one's no surprise. I think this trio is going to be all over Texas, even though I need them to lose a couple more games for my season win total to go under the total.
So far, so good in season on Bet On It, 14-4 in college football. And I'm going to fade the sharp money that's come in on Oklahoma. The only thing I don't like is the talk about the quarterback material not being a game time decision. He's going to go. But I don't like that negative on Oklahoma. I wish everything was positive on the Oklahoma side, because here's the bottom line. Forget the handicap. Forget the X's and O's. This is a simple case of an overreaction to a small sample size. And let me explain. Prior to the season starting, Oklahoma was nowhere near the top 10. Texas was 3rd power rating wise, top 5 for sure amongst all sharp power ratings. Many had them top 3, top 1 or 2 for some. Okay. We saw them lose to Ohio State the first week. No surprise. Ohio State's the best team in the country. They were before the season started. They were going into this week. All right. They lost that by, a touchdown. Since then, the stock on Texas continues to drop and the stock on Oklahoma is going up. But here's the bottom line. There's nowhere that Oklahoma is better, meaning like efficiency wise. Offense, you look at Texas, they're top 15. Oklahoma barely in the top 30. Defense, Texas, top 5. Oklahoma, top 10. You look at power rating wise, I get it. Both Texas and Penn State have been dropped from the rankings. But I'm telling you right now, there are only, maybe 5 or 6 teams that should be favored over Texas on a neutral field. That's correct. On a neutral field, only 5 or 6 teams should be favored over Texas. That doesn't mean that the books wouldn't make a team favored over Texas, because the book's job is to balance risk. But what would happen if that is the case? You would see wise guys lining up and taking Texas, because their power ratings reflect mine. And mine show right now that Texas is still a top 10 team in the country. Oklahoma's barely a top 20 team in the country. And that's going to play itself out with strength of schedule, because up until now, Texas has played the 10th toughest schedule in all of college football. Oklahoma's played the 58th toughest schedule in all of college football. Well, coming up for them over the rest of the season, top 5. So we'll see what Oklahoma's made of over the next couple weeks. With all that said, this is simply a power rating bet where I think that the market's so overreacted on Texas's short-term results. And like, what did they do? They haven't been getting blown out or anything like that. Again, getting Texas at a pick 'em at home -1 is a gift. They should be at least a 3-point favorite in this spot at minimum. Give me the Texas Longhorns. Fade the wise guys. I love Texas on Saturday, dude.
All right, Marco D'Angelo, before we get into your best bet, can you please let everybody know what is going on over at WagerTalk.com? We have a new special up called The Weekend Warrior.
Yeah, well, that's been up for a few weeks, Kelly, and it's been a very successful, very popular. You can pick your favorite handicapper at WagerTalk. $49. You'll get all of their plays Saturday, Sunday in football. And if your handicapper has a play on the Monday night football game, and there's 2 of them this week, so good chance your capper will have a play, you'll get that as a free bonus on Monday. Now, if you want to jump on board and get all the plays for a 7-day period, we also have a $77 package going at WagerTalk as well. And with baseball playoffs in full swing, few games left in the WNBA playoffs, and we had hockey begin on Tuesday night. Next week, you got basketball. The NBA starts. Great time to grab those all-access packages so you never miss a play from your favorite handicapper. Kelly, we're going to go with the same playbook I ran last week. Our best bet last week came home. We laid some chalk with Texas A&M, but it was one of those scenarios where I absolutely loved the setup going into the game. And I've got a carbon copy of it this week. We're going to take a look at James Madison. I love what people are going to do with this game because they're going to look at what they just saw last and overreact to it. Last week, Louisiana, James Madison's opponent this week, was in a shootout with Marshall. They won in double overtime, 54-51. While James Madison was playing a 14-7 snooze fest victory over Georgia State. They were a 20-point favorite in that game. The knee-jerk reaction for the betting public is going to be, I got one team that scored 54 points. I got another team that only scored 14 last week, and they're laying 18 this week. Yeah, where do I sign up? I can't get enough of the dog. Not so fast, my friends, as Lee Corso would say. I love taking a good team, and let me tell you, James Madison is a very good team for this conference. I love taking those teams when they come off a scare like they had last week. You also have the situation because of that scare, you know that team's going to come to play and they're going to be focused. You also are going to get the benefit of some line value because the market's going to overreact to what they saw last week. And the fact that Louisiana scored 54 points last week, that was against Marshall. Take a look at Marshall's defensive stats. They're putrid, okay? They're going to be going against James Madison, who has an elite defense. James Madison has only allowed one team in 5 games to score over 13 points. That one team was Louisville. That was a team from a Power 5 conference, the ACC, and they held them to 28 points, where Louisville generally scores more than that. This is a horrible Louisiana defense, especially against the run. They allow 222 yards per game against the ground, on the ground. Why do I bring that up? Especially in a game where you're laying 18 points. What do I care about the ground game? That's important when you're laying a big number. James Madison averages 243 yards per game on the ground. So what that means is when James Madison builds a big lead in the second half and you get to that fourth quarter and you have so many times teams just want to try to milk the clock and get out of there, they're going to be doing what they do best. So not only are they shortening the game when they have a big lead, they're protecting the lead. They can add to the lead because they do what they do best. Whereas so often you have a passing team that suddenly tries to run the football in the fourth quarter to protect the lead, and that's just disaster. That's how you get backdoored. That doesn't happen with a good running team. Go ahead and lay the points. This one is going to be blowout city. I've got James Madison winning 41-13 is my college best bet for Bet On It.
Woo! I went back and forth on my best bet for this week, and Barking Dog. There's like 6 underdogs I like to win outright, but this team, they owe us after last week, and you guys know exactly where I'm going. We're going to take the points here with Maryland. I cannot believe I'm standing by the hotel pool with a bunch of kids wanting to watch the Yankees. Maryland's up 20. Change the channel, Kelly. Change the channel. They're up 20. The game's over. Well, guess what? The game was not over. You're going to think Maryland might want that one back. 24 unanswered by Washington. And here we are, backing them again as an underdog at home. Speaking of Washington, Malik Washington, quarterback for Maryland, has been absolutely electric, completing almost 70% of his passes. And that is why I like this team. This offense is running on all cylinders. Now, if the defense can come up with a couple of turnovers, I believe they can beat the Cornhuskers here, mainly because Nebraska hasn't won anything on the road, just one of their last 7 road games. What do we expect from the Cornhuskers? They're going to run the ball. They're going to try to eat up the clock, and we know they're going to play smash mouth defense. So great passing defense versus great passing offense. 2 worlds collide, and I expect this to be a lower scoring game, making points at a premium. Speaking of defense, Maryland's defense is getting no credit at all, but they're only giving up 12.5 points per game on the season. So yes, last week was kind of an anomaly, and we're going to give the Terps a second chance. Don't forget to sprinkle a little bit on that money line because Maryland will make my parlay for this week. All right, guys, that's it for the college edition of Bet On It. Let's get that recap graphic up for all of you guys that have requested it. We brought you back the music. We brought you back the recap graphic. All we're asking is a little bit of love from you while it's in the comments, whether it's on that like button or hitting subscribe. Thank you to VR. Thank you to Marco. Of course, if you're looking for that NFL edition of Bet On It, you can find it right here. And if you're looking for everything we do here on the show, NFL, college football, and those special segments right here on the Mega Show.